The pull-up is one of the hardest exercises you can do. And today, I'm gonna give you 3 tips to improve your pull-up. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Move Better Mondays. This is episode 22, and today we are discussing how to improve your pull-up. Basically, what I want to do today is kind of explain the reason why I think a pull-up is such an important exercise. Then I want to jump into the 3 things that I always try to go to or use as tactics to help my clients improve their pull-up or get to that first pull-up. Now, before we go any further, if you haven't subscribed, I would greatly appreciate if you could click that button below, leave me a little comment at the end of the episode, give me a thumbs up, and let me know what you guys think of this episode. Now, the reason I really like the pull-up or the chin-up, whatever you want to call it, I know the first exercise I did in the intro was technically a chin-up, but I said pull-up. I know, honestly, it doesn't really matter. They're both fairly similar exercises, still a very difficult task to get your body from hanging up into the air. So the reason I love this exercise so much is simply because it tells me so much about someone's shoulder. It tells me if their shoulders are moving well. It tells me if they're a high likelihood of injury, if they're high likelihood of shoulder pain. And it's really one of those, almost the pinnacle, I think, of upper body strength. I know a lot of people use the bench press as one of those gauges. For me, it really is the pull-up. It tells me it's probably the hardest body weight exercise you can really do outside of like a handstand shoulder press, which I don't really understand, to be honest with you. But the pull-up itself is such a great exercise because that hanging tension on your shoulder is actually pulling on that rotator cuff and is actually making it fire and try to react quickly. It's actually really good for shoulder health and rotator cuff health. So generally, if people have injuries to the rotator cuff, once they get to a certain level, I really try to get them to almost get to that suspended position where they can kind of just dead hang and get that shoulder and that rotator cuff to really suck and draw back and keep this arm in the socket, which is usually one of the issues that'll come about if you have a rotator cuff injury, that it's kind of, loose, won't have that reactive response. And generally it could come from a poor alignment, which is something I spoke about in episode 16, 17, 18, 19, something like that. One of those, I'm gonna link them right up there. Now, whether you're basically on the cusp of getting a pull-up or you're not anywhere near it, this is gonna be a great video clip for you to kind of pick some things out of here to really start bringing you closer to getting that first pull-up. And the issue that really occurs more often than not when someone's struggling to get that first pull-up, it really falls into a couple of categories. The first thing could be you don't have enough strength in your upper body, which is usually the most common thing. You either have never done this for a very long time, you're not used to it, it's been such a long time since you've been basically hanging from 2 arms. So it really is a lot of demand that you're trying to place on the upper body, especially when you haven't done it in a very long time. The other thing that kind of comes about, which is kind of tied into it, but is a very sensitive subject to really discuss with a lot of individuals, is body weight. Now, the very obvious thing is that if you are carrying more body weight, it is significantly harder for you to pull that weight up into the air. It's basically a question of, is it harder to bring 20 pounds up a hill or 100 pounds up a hill? Which is why this subject is a little bit of a delicate topic to be discussing, because you don't want to just walk up to someone and tell them, hey, you're never going to be able to do a pull-up because you're overweight, where in fact, them being able to work towards that pull-up is actually going to be very beneficial for them if their aim is to lose weight. Okay, so the first thing I would tell you, the first tip or the first tool you can use to help you improve your pull-up is using body weight exercises. Now, what I mean by body weight exercises is don't rely on machines to help you get stronger in the arms. Don't use dumbbells to help you get stronger in the arms. Don't use all these shoulder presses, bench presses, these rowing machines. What you want to do is teach your body how to hold onto itself and how to move itself around. So things like push-ups, things like inverted rows where your body's lying. I'll just show you right now. Okay, so basically what I mean by a suspended rowing exercise, which is basically using a TRX. So what you'll do is you'll basically climb under this and you'll just start rowing. And what that's gonna do is this is gonna teach me how to control my body weight. Now, The more I learn how to control my body weight, the better and the easier it's gonna be for me to perform this exercise and to perform that pull-up. Because what is really interesting about bodyweight exercises is when you do a bodyweight exercise, what ends up happening is your body learns to almost understand that it's almost a survival type of movement as opposed to just you trying to push weight. So what you're doing is you're teaching yourself to shed useless weight to be able to execute that exercise, which is why I highly recommend things like push-ups, inverted rows like this. If you can't do a great push-up, then what you can do is you could start working, actually, well, if you can't do a push-up, you're far away from a pull-up, but you could start with like almost like an inclined kind of push-up against the bar, and you can eventually work your way down. But being able to do these bodyweight exercises that are, almost precursors to, I guess a pull-up is a great place to be starting. And it's usually where I tell individuals to go, because they're gonna be learning how to create core control. They're gonna be learning how to create, shoulder control, shoulder girdle control, which is really important. So that's tip number one, is start really upping your ability to do, or start upping the quantity of bodyweight exercises you do throughout the day. Now, tip number two is gonna be very similar. What we're doing is we're actually trying to gauge and adjust the amount of weight you're doing. So one of the things I will do is tell someone to use one of the, where are they? We're right over here. One of these, basically what is a, switch that, probably should have prepared that ahead of time too. One of these super bands. They're a little bit longer, and what you're doing with these super bands is you're going to be attaching them to the top of the rack, sliding it underneath your knee, and that's gonna support your body weight. So let me show you what that looks like right now. All right, so I got my elastic. It's tied up around the top of the rack, so basically the bar that I'm gonna be using. Now I'm gonna decide whether I'm gonna bring it down to my knee or to my foot. Now the foot is a lot easier because it's further, so there's more tension coming from the elastic. If it is at the knee, it's a little bit more challenging. Likewise, if you use a thicker elastic, it's a lot easier. If you use a thinner elastic, it's significantly harder. So you're gonna have to figure out where you're gonna be falling in that spectrum. I would recommend somewhere in the 8 to 10 rep range to start. You wanna be able to mess around in that area and get it to be about 14, and then drop back down and do something at like 6 or 8 reps, okay? So for me, I'm gonna grab it, drop it right down to my knee. Once it's at my knee, I'm gonna make sure not to bring my knee up. If I bring my knee up, I'm gonna snap that elastic right off and I'm gonna lose it. So I gotta get it around my knee. Then from here, getting my hands into that pull-up position. So I'm going wide. I'm gonna show you the pull-up. You can really do this with a chin-up. It's no different. So from here, getting my body to hang, and I'm using the elastic to pull me up, pull me down. Obviously, I'm not gonna go straight up because you're gonna lose me out of frame, but getting that elastic to lift my body weight and bring me up is gonna be one of the ways that you're gonna be able to do the pull-up exercise, still get some core control, but just reduce some of the weight on your body. And it's actually gonna be training you in a way that once you get to the top, it's gonna be significantly harder than at the bottom. So it's changing up the force curve that's gonna allow you to kind of learn from a different position. So I recommend it. I don't think that this is the only way you should be handling it, because really when you're doing a pull-up, the most difficult place is right at the bottom. This is where you have the least amount of strength. When you're up at the top, it really comes down to your ability to go through and have the endurance the whole way through. But when you're at the bottom, that first bit is really tough to get through. So I can understand why you would like using this, because it's gonna help you with that portion, but it's not gonna save you when you get rid of it. So that brings me to the third one. Now, I actually nailed that. I can't believe, literally hook shot it. I don't even know. I'm gonna get around to see this because you gotta see this. Look at that. Right on, still moving. Unbelievable. God. It's my day today, I'm telling you. Universe loves me today, guys. So, the third way you're gonna be doing it is going to be through a negative. Negative means the downward face. It's also called the eccentric portion of the entire movement, but that negative portion, that downward phase, is actually one way that you can actually help yourself do the concentric phase, or the positive or the upward phase. So for a pull-up, one of the things you need to remember is, if you are, or actually for a negative for that matter, forget just pull-ups, for any exercise, a negative, you wanna make sure that you are able to slow it down and control it down. Now, the way the science works is if you can do 100 pounds going up, so if I can pull 100 pounds to myself, like if I'm doing a row, if I can pull the 100 pounds, then I can control and return about 130% of that, so essentially 130 pounds. And you also have to remember that when you're doing a pull-up, you're already at your max. So if you're not within that 30% difference, you are significantly putting yourself at risk for a major injury. This is the reason I'm saying that, because your body is not able to support what you're putting it through. So you gotta be very cautious when you use a negative. The other thing is I wouldn't use this tactic for more than about 2 weeks and pretty much about 6 to 7 workouts. So what I mean is not 6 to 7 workouts one after the other 7 days in a row. I'm talking 6 to 7 workouts spread out throughout like 2 to 3 weeks. That is literally the maximum I would tell you to do. Anything more than that, and you're probably not in a good enough range to be doing this exercise, or you need to bounce to something else, the elastics, the bodyweight exercises, another form of pulling to eventually come back to it. So what a negative looks like is get yourself to the top position either by jumping and then slowly lowering yourself down under control. You want it to last basically as long as I just made it last, that 4, 5, 6 second range. I'm not talking the 4 to 5, 6 second range that everyone does their squats or their planks in when they're counting the time. It's not, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has to be 5 straight seconds. If it's not 5 to 6 seconds, you're significantly putting yourself at risk because you're probably not able to control it. It means you are well outside of that 30% range. So that basically wraps up today's episode. If you liked what you heard today, if you guys have any questions about mastering a pull-up, please leave me a little message in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about this exercise. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Oh my God, I lost my voice. I'll see you guys next week.